Hello, my name is Matthew Prada,
My name is Andrew Piloto.
and this is our project on sign language.
So we're going to be talking about music and sound, how we hear, how deaf people interact with music. We're going to be talking about sign language itself, how things are lost in translation, how things are gained in translation, and translation and meaning.
So, music and sound. Sound travels in waves vibrations, and these are known as a frequency. Now, it tends to be the higher the frequency, the higher the pitch, and this frequency is measured in a unit called a hertz. 1 hertz is equal to 1 wave per that second. So 20 hertz is 20 waves per second. Now, the human can hear from around 20 to 20,000 hertz, and this is significantly lower for any person with hearing damage or is deaf. So, for hearing damage or deaf people, there's 4 types. You have mild, moderate, severe, and profound. Now, mild is 25 to 40 decibels. A decibel is basically just a unit they use to measure how loud something is. So mild is 25 to 40 decibels. This is where hearing aids can fix, and this is the most common that comes with age. Moderate is 45 to 70 decibels. This is where conversation becomes hard in a way. You'll find people with moderate hearing constantly asking, "What do you say?" and stuff like that. Severe is where the true difficulty comes in because conversation becomes virtually mute. This is from 70 to 90 decibels, meaning you can't hear anything under 90 decibels. This is where hearing aids tend to not work and surgery barely may help. Lastly, you have profound. This is the worst case scenario. It's from 90 to 120 decibels, and this is where it's like you can barely hear a jet engine. This is where conversation is completely mute, surgery is not going to help, and this is where you're basically forced to learn ASL.
So to understand how deaf people can actually listen to music, we need to first understand what brain plasticity is, because deaf people can still listen to music, they can still comprehend it, however, it's just in their own way. So in the absence of sound, it has been proposed that deaf auditory cortex may provide compensation of visual function. This doesn't mean that the senses are necessarily heightened, it just means that they are more profound. So, for example, a deaf person will likely experience an increase in spatial orientation due to the lack of audio cues.
So, how do deaf people interact with music? And is music truly universal, even for deaf people? Now, this all, like I said, depends on how deaf you are. For example, you could be moderately deaf and you'll still be able to, you might not be able to hear the lyrics, but you could still definitely, most likely hear the music. But once you become in the severe range, this is where you start feeling the music, as so to speak. A great example of this is Beethoven. Beethoven was a composer that slowly became deaf. Now, Beethoven's deafness didn't stop him from composing because he was still able to feel the music and associate it with the sound itself. He never became completely deaf, but he was still able to hear, feel the sound and hear it very so slightly. Now, like all language, there's parameters to that language, and so with ASL. These 5 parameters are hand shape, palm orientation, location of hand, movement, and non-manual markers. So hand shape is, this means mom, for example, and this means dad. The hand shape is my fingers open or are they closed? For both mom and dad, it needs to be open. This does not mean mom. This means mom. And same with here. Second is palm orientation. My palm needs to be faced left for mom and dad. It can't be like this, and it can't be like this. Or this. Sorry. Then you have location of hand. The location of hand, mom has to be at the chin, dad has to be at the forehead, and this does not mean mom, this does not mean dad, it has to be here. In some cases you have movement, where it's either shaking or jumping of the hand, and the most important for music or ASL translators are non-manual markers, which is body movement or facial expressions.
Now, of course, with translation from any language to another, there will be components that will be lost in the translation. For example, a famous interpreter for music is Amber Galloway Gallego. She says that interpreters have been using the basic sign for music whenever there's music present. Or they would just be signing the lyrics directly into ASL. So for example, the music or the sign for music is just simply this. So an interpreter, whenever they hear music and a deaf person is around, they would just go music, which signifies, nothing basically. It's completely lacking in the emotion, the whole intimacy of the song. Everything that is composed up in a song is just lacking in there. Similarly, she brings up this idea of position of the sign in correspondence to the frequency or pitch of a tone. For example, if there was a guitar riff, a high guitar riff, she would sign up here to signify the frequency of a high pitch, and like a bass guitar riff, she would sign down low to signify the deepness of the bass. If an interpreter were to fail at this, it would completely result in a whole loss of intimacy in the song, a loss of emotion, it'll throw the complete flow of music off the course, which results in a loss of flow, basically. Another main component of a song, it's lost in translation, is intimacy of a song. So there's always going to be that gap, no matter what, from any language to another. There'll always going to be that gap. The music is an art composed of so many components that when translated into a different language, a visual language like ASL, there's so many of those components that just completely go away, they diminish. They may get the words across with the melody, however, once one starts, the other one is lost. ASL being such a visually expressive language, there's so many pros to it, of course. One of which being is more physically expressive. This allows for the occurrence of more engaged stories, more detail, more spatial awareness in the story. It's more detailed basically in visual language, such as ASL. Another pro that comes along with ASL is muscle memory. So for example, a lot of interpreters such as Amber, she remembers songs due to the muscle memory of signing them. When talking about translation and meaning, we can take a look at the song by Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. Obviously, there is a lot of lyrical and instrumental separation in this song, being that it is composed of so many genres in just one song. Now, when trying to translate this song into sign language, it's hard to convey all of those different genres and different meanings of the song since there's so many to compose. And a lot of times they're meant to go together. And similarly, multiple voices are singing simultaneously, which is hard to sign basically in general. So there's a whole loss of, once again, intimacy, emotion, just the whole flow of the song.
So now translation and meaning continue. So basically, it's really hard to express sound and lyrics at the same time. So you'll be expressing sound, a lot of interpreters have been expressing sound with their hands and body, rather you start losing the lyrics, and it's hard to express both at the same time. And this is a problem that Amber Galileo is trying to solve. Now, furthermore, translators, they need to be one who are emphasizing the music, and if they're not emphasizing, it's an injustice for all the people that, I guess, they can't hear the music. So in order for them to, they could feel the music, but the interpreters need to, I guess, express the music according to what they feel. In conclusion, there's definitely meaning lost to the translation, and we've been trying to fix it, translators have. And as someone who can hear, I hope that I'll never be someone that has to experience music as a deaf person. And I say hopefully, but do we truly know what it feels like? We'll never experience it unless we become deaf. And we will never know truly if it's worse or better. Now, a quote from WebMMD states, "The perception of musical vibration by the deaf is likely every bit as real as the equivalent sounds, since they are ultimately processed in the same part of the brain." This just shows that music for deaf people is still enjoyable, and the translators are trying to make it as enjoyable as possible.
Thank you.